Hello, good afternoon, ladybugs and yellow jackets. Welcome to Friday's episode of Author Reads here on Fae Productions. I am your host, Fairy Princess Lolly. I'm really glad to be with you guys here today. Sorry I tuned in a little bit late. Oh, there was a hurdle and I had to leap it and I had to perform serious magic, but here we are. Let me give a shout out to our obligatory things out of the way at the beginning of the show. First, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you would like to get notifications about our future shows coming up. We do at least 3 of them a week, and we'd like to see you out there in the audience for all of them. So please, I think we decided on Wednesday that I have to come up with a new adjective for what you need to do to the bell. So today I want you to pow the bell. It just gets boring saying the same thing over and over. So also today's show is sponsored by Platyfly Studios, and you may have seen them actually here on Handmade Home Shopping. Platyfly Studios sells fantasy-inspired clothing and accessories. They are all handcrafted by Kat Hawthorne. She is from Indianapolis, Indiana. So shout out to all of you people there. And you can in her store you can find handmade, ready-made items that include pixie skirts, mermaid gloves, and made-to-order items. So if you are looking for something custom, she is definitely willing to do that. Please just shoot her a message. It is a really good opportunity to get yourself an awesome Halloween thing, or yourself or someone you know a super cool, unique gift for the upcoming holiday season. As we all know, where it is about to happen, right? Just as soon as Halloween is over. So please check her out on Facebook, follow Platyfly Studios, and you can also find her on Instagram, where she does information and announces future sales and more. And thank you again, Platyfly, for sponsoring our show. And with that said, you guys, I am welcome today to our author and illustrator, Joseph Corso. Welcome, Joseph.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing all right. So please, if you will, say hello to the audience and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Well, I am very excited to be here. This is the first time I've promoted this in a while. I've been building it all year. And the Faerie-Punk is basically a culmination of 18 years of work that I first started from a photo shoot I was doing when I lived in New York. And then it evolved into this way of looking at fairies that I tried to make it new and modern and just something that in my eyes hadn't been done before, taking the fairies from the forest and putting them in the city and asking yourself a very specific question of what would happen if you just took like a bunch of fairy refugees and threw them in the middle of New York City in the mid 90s, and the stories that would happen related to that. And the universe was built from there on in. Stories and photo shoots and everything that started to be created culminated with what's now Faerie-Punk. And I know we were Time of the Fairies for a very long time, but it felt like too much of the classical vibe, and so Faerie-Punk very much sums up what we are.
Wanted to breathe some new life, which I really think is kind of the essence of everything fairy, because nothing stays stagnant, right? Everything, we all evolve together, right? And so I really like this, your particular take on everything. Now, can I ask a quick question? So I know that your photos, like your artwork, is a derivative of photo shoots. Is this photo shoots and then graphic design on top of it? Some other artistic venue on top of the actual photos, or is it just like purely staged photo shoots, like, and everything you see? I mean, obviously the wings, right? But I mean, so.
It's a little mix of everything. I've tried over the years to get as much in camera as possible. When the photo shoots first started, like, we built our own wings and had the models wear them, but it became really obvious real fast that the emotability of the models, just from shoulders and body movement, like there were times when the wings were just like this, and then the model would do that, and then the whole wing would fall on top of her face, and it's like, oh, that might look cool for a couple of images, but nah, that's not for everything. So I was like, all right, we're making the wings digital. I've done makeup artists and relied on their, like, prosthetics or their, like, in-camera work, but I've also done a lot of makeup in photo shoots. So I've had one of the famous stories that I had a model come over for a test shoot, and she had just woken up and she had no makeup on whatsoever. I snapped a couple of pictures of the outfit just to test to see what I wanted, and then we finished it. She was getting dressed in the other room, and then all of a sudden, like, I had just done my thing and put makeup on her, and I was like, great, the shot's done. We don't need to do the photo shoot anymore. She's like, what? I wasn't even ready. I was like, well, you did a great job. You did good enough that all I need to do was add some eyeliner and we're done. So there's that. And then there's, like, obviously the environments and things like that. It's all Photoshop and graphics laid on top of that. And I try to make it as photoreal as possible. Like, I'm shooting insect wings. I had a friend send me a bunch of bat wings for other shots that I did, like, that he found on the side of the road. So whatever photographs I can get gets incorporated.
Real bat wings?
Real bat wings. You found a dead bat.
I was like, ooh, bat wings. And then you said on the side of the road. And I'm like, wait.
Yep, you found a poor, sad, dead bat on the side of the road. And he gratefully, like, took it, photographed it that way, photographed it up, photographed it reversed. And I was just like, great, perfect. And that became part of my thing.
Wow.
So whenever you see bat wings in my photos, those are real bat wings. So I do whatever I can to make it look as real as possible. But, like, the thing we've always gone by is we want to bring the reality to fantasy, so that extra layer of grit and trueness.
So what do you think is the most incredible of all the photos and all the work that you've done over the years? What is the one thing that sticks out the most in your minds, the most incredible, like, experience, place, person, whatever it may be?
That's really hard, because so many of the photo shoots are just, like, sometimes I'm doing a photo shoot just in the corner of my apartment, but, like, the connection that I would have with the model and making that magic happen, and it's just a studio, but the lighting just hits perfectly and the emotivity is perfect. And that's, like, finding the universe right there. That, to me, is, like, that's what the photo shoots are about, is finding that performance and then creating art based on that performance. But I've had some amazing, I had models trunk through the white sands desert, just nothing but pure white sand as far as the eye could see, and we've shot there. I've shot in Iceland for some photos, that I've wanted. I've shot in Hawaii for some shots, in order to
I'm jealous.
Things like that.
All the places you must have been.
Yeah, it's been fun trying to create, with sometimes going out there into the world and sometimes just in the small corner. So it's like a little bit of everything. So I can't pinpoint, like, one great experience. There was this one time, I will say, that was one of the most awe-inspiring, which was we shot in the belly of an empty boiler room of the Queen Mary, and it was just me, the body paint artists, and this massive, overwhelmingly so, dark space that only is lit by where you put light. So, like, we're in the center of this thing, and you can't see, the light just does not touch the walls. It's such a big space, and it just kind of created this sense of, like, of fear, of this phobia almost, because it was so massive. And, like, shot in some of the textures, I created a whole species of fairy just based on these photos that I took. And I think that was an experience. And sadly, the model was a waitress and was blue for, like, an entire week, and her boss hated me, but the photos were worth it. I loved that experience. We basically got kicked out after we shot for, like, an hour, because the model was nude and just covered in body paint. And the guys who let us do it were like, oh, we were told we were not allowed to do it anyway. I was like, all right, well, we got, like, 100 photos. We're good. We're done. Pack out. Go home. Let's go get sushi.
So, oh, man, I had a question. It was right there. So, yes. Okay. So, if I'm understanding correctly, then, and please, feel free to correct me if I'm not, what we have here today is you have started or otherwise expanded on the writing the universe that surrounds the photos and your photo and graphic artwork. And that is what you have been compiling all year into these 3 separate books, which you're working on number 3, right?
Yeah.
And number 1 and 2 are out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so what you're reading to us today is kind of this, your now expanded universe where you're really telling the stories that went along with all. What a cool, this is like just so many, a decade or more in the making, this project must be.
Oh yeah. The first, and this is a story that was created 18 years ago when I first did the first photo shoot, and I had no idea I was going to be doing this. And it was me and like 20 of my friends in a park, all with built fairy wings, and us running around. I had a 35mm camera. We just shot some fun stuff, and this story just built in my head. And then I moved to LA, and I just started building the shoots according to that story, and then it got more and more intense. And we've, like a lot of 10 stories were created among everything. So this is part of one of them that I'll be reading from. And it's not the beginning, because the beginning starts a little biblical, kind of, you say, the beginning of the universe. So we're skipping ahead a little bit, and we're starting with one chapter of that, like say chapter 3, so to speak, of the origin.
That's okay, start in the middle.
Yeah. So this is not city stuff. This is more ancient, long time ago, like, fairies living in forests still, but you'll see it begin to go towards like where it's going to be and why they end up in the cities and things like that. So we'll see. I hope you guys like it.
I'm sure we will. So it's just so cool and unique. What I had one other question that was like right there that I wanted to ask, but I can't remember. I don't know.
Remember, just feel free to interrupt. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. Well, so I'm about to turn the camera over to you, and I'll put you on mute. For everybody watching at home, this is the time where Joseph will read to us, and then we'll be in the comments. I'll be in the comments with you guys. If you have questions that you want to ask or comments that you want to say, please put them into the comments, and when he is done reading, then we will ask them to him. At the very end of the show, we will do our classic giveaway. So I think that's everything. So with that said, are you ready to read? Uh-oh, you are frozen. No. Oh, uh-oh. I'm gonna have to give it a second here. Let's see. Me? I don't even know. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Oh, we have lost connection. Wow, that's strange. Doesn't happen all the time. Well, here's what we're going to do. I am sure he will log back in here in a second, but in the meantime, I do have his website that we can take a look at, and you guys can just get a peek here at some of this amazing art. It is definitely in its own realm. So this is the Faerie-Punk, and what you see here, this is a book 1, and that is what he'll be reading to us from when he gets back. But you can kind of see how it's just all this urban fairy, a little kind of has that sort of post-apoc dystopian, I don't know, what am I looking for? Mad Max. Bartertown meets fairies. I love it. It's just I can only think about the amazing places that one must go to get some of these pictures. And this is the one that, let me see if I click on it, if it'll come up here. Oh, it did, but in a different screen. Okay. I'm going to click on one of these and see what happens. Ooh. Ooh, what is this? Are we back? Nope, not yet. Okay, I'm pushing play, guys. I don't even know what I'm about to push play on. Here we go. We're watching it together. Oh, it's like a trailer for the books. I love this. This is great. I wonder where they are. And I see your question out there. I will ask when he comes back. Let me see if I can. Where'd it go? I love this. This is beautiful. There he is. Haha, I hear you. See you.
Oh, now.
Hello. Welcome back.
There we go.
Oh, which one do we want?
Whatever one is clear, I guess, to you, audio-wise, or... Yeah, there we go. We'll go with that one.
All right. That's okay. While you were gone, we were taking a look at some of the trailers on your website.
That exact moment to just conk out.
It's okay. The things, they happen. So you are not the first, nor shall you probably ever be the last.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. I was ready. I've had this happen before. I knew what to do.
Thank you. I'm glad. I thought you were looking at a little bit of the video that we had on.
Yeah, I was. I actually hadn't seen those, and I didn't realize they were a video, I guess, the first time I looked at them on your website. And so I just kind of scrolled through, and I'm like, wait, there's a little play button. I think I shall press it and see what happens. Wait,
Yeah,
is this a rabbit hole?
It's a little BTS stuff. I don't normally shoot video on my shoots, and I regret it to this day that I didn't have a dedicated like videographer on our shoots with us. Even the studio ones, the kind of stuff you get from a model is amazing. But I just put whatever I could into that because I had some good music made by a good friend of mine from the band Alice, and they like, use it for your TOTF stuff, whatever you need. I'm like, great, awesome.
Oh, nice. Oh. So I remembered my question actually too. So I guess it all worked out. So my question was, do you, and you don't have to answer because it might be too personal, but do you feel like a personal connection to fairy, or is it just like the genre of art that you like, or I mean, how did you come to be connected with doing this particular? Like how come not robots, or how come, you know what I mean? How come not steampunk or whatever?
That is a very personal question, but I can answer that. Okay. It's basically, again, I talked about that first photo shoot that started it all, and I was surrounded by some amazing, feminine energies, like during that time. It's like some of my models and friends were very much pagan, were very much into fairies, and to me, I started to like come up with these ways of looking at not only just my friends, but just that whole genre, and not just take it in a escapism form, but take it in a like, this means something. Like these energies are chaotic spirits. These represents possibility. They represent potential energy. And like my brain started processing a whole like almost like quantum theory of how their magic actually worked. And like the more I thought about it, the more I fell in love with the genre and fell in love with the feminine energies connected to it. And like once I started building, I just couldn't get away from it. It just became an idea that I had to just play with. So like became from just female forms frolicking in the forest to like these are catalysts for possibility and ideas and change and evolution. I mean, so many things get touched based on we play with addiction, and I think a fairy's versatile form, both metaphorically, metaphysically, and literally, can play with all those ideas. So it became more of an editorial and taking that almost a science fiction edge to the fantasy genre and playing with it. And that's why fairies just seem so, because they're adaptive, and that adaptivity really made it sky's the limit. I turned fairies into angels. I've turned fairies into vampires. I've played with all the mythological genres and really made it. I really tried to make it as modern and cohesive and as true to life as possible, and inspired again greatly by many of my friends, many of my people who I knew, people I respect, and that's just what ended up happening.
I love how it's all so based in reality, if you will, right? So like real people that
that's what I'm going for.
And I love it. Okay, so now, we're gonna try it again. Gonna turn the screen over to you, put myself on mute, and off you go.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is phase 1 of Faerie-Punk, and we're skipping ahead a few chapters to the Age of Carrion. So there's going to be mentions of characters that you have no idea, and if you want more information, please read the book. So here we are. The Age of Carrion, 8,000 years ago. During this Gilded Age, Kylan made a gradual transition from the Age of Growth, as it was during the rule of Thea, to the Age of Surplus and Plenty. There were fewer farms, but more luxurious gardens. Fewer homes, more palaces. Fewer needs, more desires. When Carrion assumed her rule, she decided to change the focus of Kylan, concentrating more on festivities and new cultural experiences, less on ancient ritual and tedious processes. It was a new era, and Carrion wished it to be remembered above all others. Life was meant to be enjoyed. Humans and Fae reveled in their many great accomplishments. Growth stagnated. Human statues and shrines to be built with hard human labor was boldly commissioned in tribute to Kyland and its beautiful royals. Expensive, massive, unnecessary, awe-inspired constructions that would surround Kyland so the world would know its wealth and power. Resources were being exploited, wasted on things deemed frivolous by many. Human kings used their Valyars for entertainment rather than guidance. Carrion did not teach the humans enough respect for the world and could only watch as the earth was used up. It was whispered that Carrion was on a mission served only by her own vanity. It was around this time that Laura had a strange vision of civil war and didn't make any sense to her. Her Spitfires were to be a part of it, so Laura made sure to send them away from Kyland for a time, not wanting them to be involved. In the kingdom, rebelling fairies shared their grievances in private at first, but soon howled in public protest. Calling themselves felons, these organized six marched into the sanctuary and called out Carrion before her court. Reading their list of grievances aloud, Anavir would escort and arrest these rebels shortly into their demonstration. The damage was done, and news of the event traveled fast, their message even starting to spark more support. Tara, Carrion, and Akari agreed, and they were to be made into public examples. They were quickly exiled from Kyland by the nobles, making certain no one would join them. The felons turned themselves into wolves and hid from the rest of the world, vowing for all time to never get involved in it again. By the time the Spitfires returned, they missed the small rebellion. Laura acts too calm with the news, and Nyx calls her out on manipulating them. Nyx screams on about trust and free will. Laura told Nyx she can never have her becoming a pariah, that the world needed them to be here for what is to come. She did it to protect them, explaining that she and the others would have been exiled, or worse if she hadn't. Nyx lets it slip that maybe they should have been, walking off in a huff. While life continued on, those who doubted that intermingling with humans was irresponsible would soon regret their willful ignorance. One human king rose to power, King Uruk. His family and those before him were raised on stories of Kyland. King Uruk's entire kingdom was in part inspired by the wisdom and beauty of Carrion, and built in her honor. She was a goddess. They worshipped her without question. Soon the king and the goddess would meet. Carrion, enjoying the attention and the gifts from her human acolytes, returned Uruk's affections. It suited her vanity to be loved and adored by all. In her heart, she felt this was a grand experiment, and one that could only last 40 years or so at the most, due to the short lifespan of humans, a mere blink of time for her and her people, a drop in the pool of infinity. She opened Kyland to Uruk and his people to use as they wished. Once again, humans and Fae socialized, intermingled, and sowed the seeds of future discord. After many celebrations, Uruk mused on the joining of kingdoms, human and Fae, Kyland included, under one banner, his banner, and Carrion would be his queen. The hubris of one man was not lost on her, but was curious, wanting to see how far she could push this, and she was very flattered by his attention. She had no desire to end his game early. His arrogance was amusing, but it was not reality. Humans, she knew, were not equal to the Fae. Not even the Valyar could claim that stature. Still, her sister royals urged her to end this experiment and remind the humans of their place in the world. Uruk invited Carrion and her guards to be guests in his kingdom. Uruk's castle, for its time, was a magnificent fortress, a tribute to Carrion. Grand statues and murals, all in her likeness, stood in every hallway and adorned every wall. It would be the perfect place for their ultimate union. Carrion accepted the invitation, but only so she could decline him in person after the festivities, after one last marvelous party. Uruk's Valyar put on a performance in her honor, dramatizing the origin of her people with dozens of actors, musicians, tumblers, and fools. Once the play ended, King Uruk stood and announced his plan to merge all of human kingdoms and family houses under his leadership to rule alongside Kyland. Carrion was impressed, but these were simple humans. They did not understand the vastness of the universe. They could not grasp what the king was proposing. Uruk was impressive by human standards, but still only human. He could not see everything that was and what would be as she could. Perhaps, Carrion mused, the felons were right. The Fae should have taught the humans more. Maybe in another 4,000 years they'd be ready. Drunk on attention, Carrion wanted to enjoy this one last night before cutting him off and ending her experiment. King Urik's only desire was to seduce her into his bed. Knowing this, curious and desiring the same despite her better judgment, Carrion allowed herself for one night to become mortal. His Valar watched closely as the Guardians performed the spell, turning energy-stimulated flesh into mortal blood, the first of its kind, a gift from Carrion to her suitor, a sign of trust. That night, she allowed passion to rule her. In spite of her wisdom, in spite of her vast knowledge of all that had been and all that will be, Carrion did not realize that this night would herald the end of the great experiment. The shared world of human and fae was about to come to a close. When the sun rose on her face, Urik was already awake, standing out in the balcony overlooking his world. He droned on about the potential of union until Carrion finally told him of her intentions and that Kylan and the human kingdoms would never merge. She went on, trying to convince her of how brilliant his plans were, how he would marry a princess, and how his first male born would succeed his role as king beside her when he was of age. Generations of kings planned, the Urik family always at the center, next to his highness. Neither side was ready. She explained gently, but it's humanity that is truly too immature for unity. He didn't agree. She wanted to leave, but Urik did not wish it to be so. Though he tried to hold her against her will, Carrion was, after all, a goddess. Using her magic, she pushed back the king and his soldiers, leaving with her own entourage of guards. Enraged, Urik ordered his Valar to repeat the spell that removed Queen Carrion's immortality, and as well as that of her protectors. They reluctantly agreed and performed this ritual. Suddenly weakened, Carrion and her company fled swiftly through the forest, pursued by Urik's best soldiers. Upon reaching a shallow lake, Carrion realized that they had been trapped. It wasn't meant to be an attack, only a threat. But his passion was intertwined in the moment of anger, and all control was lost. Urik lunged towards the now mortal queen. In her pride, she did not move. Time seemed to slow as blood poured out of her wounds and into the lake. As she stared down at her ruined body, Urik's body burned up in the fires of his mistake. Her 4 guardians murdered one by the Valar. Time froze. As her army lay dying, Carrion's fury broke the mortal spell. The guilt, shame, anger, fury, pain all pierced through the mortal illusion to reach a primal power connected to the source of all fae, a power of evolution and elemental purity. Pure no longer. Corrupted magic becomes darkness. Within seconds, Carrion evolved fully into the blood elemental. She commanded her dying forces to return to life, to become Darklings. These kinds of powerful necromancy had never been done before. It took everything she was, consumed her entirely to generate the transformation. The lake absorbed her blood and power and fed it back into the now undead guardians. When there was nothing left in her, she disintegrated into black dust, a smile on her dissolving face, and finally, nothing. With her final breath, she cursed all humanity. Anything mortal would be stalked, hunted, drained, and pursued for all they are and all they would become. Their life force, their living potential, their Kai. Darklings rose from the water, their faces colorless, their armor nothing but smoke and darkness. No longer the guardians they once were, they now hungered for Kai, and they would forever hunger for nothing else. Soon humans would learn that the Darklings' touch, they would lose all future, all their potential, their passion, any joy, all drained from their soul. Eventually, even their will to live would disappear. As long as there was life, the Darklings would thirst for it. Their guardian forms twisted and transformed into a dark cloud of shadow, surrounding Urik and his army, massacring his Valar slowly, bloodlessly. At each touch, the Valar lost their will to live. Many walked into a lake, never emerged. Others withered as if all of time descended upon them at once. And some simply went home to sit in their quarters and to die of starvation. Carrion herself fell upon the king and draw his life force from his screaming mouth. With the king dead at the lakeside, the Darklings returned to Urik's great kingdom. Within hours, the kingdom fell silent. Not a soul remained. Yet even that was not enough. The Darklings still hungered. They fell upon the next kingdom they found, then another. They spread their dark despair and depression and silence across the land. Word spread through the human lands about a magic uprising. Fearful for their survival, the humans took up arms against the Fae. Mankind swore vengeance on all fairy kind. Thus began the Kyland War. With Carrion gone, Kyland was left leaderless, and in mourning, the fairy lands in chaos and despair. With human armies marching across Kyland, and the Valar as their spear tips, the bloodshed consumed mortal and immortal alike. Eventually, the war reached the Kyland capital city, with the destructions inching towards the doors of Sanctuary itself. Many joyful structures that had once symbolized the union between the two worlds were burned in ash along the way. Valar fought Fae, weakening their magical defenses, allowing the sword and the arrow to murder and maim, crushing even the innocent Fae who only wanted to live in peace. Amidst all, there was chaos in the leadership of Kyland. Newfound fear the humans gave the three remaining royals, much to debate. Terra wanted to fight. Ikari felt it more prudent to leave. Thea was determined to wait and negotiate the war's end. This was Thea's belief, that the Fae should bring all Kai life under protection of Sanctuary and cut the city off from the rest of the world. A simple protection spell would woven into the place until communications could be reestablished. Ikari agreed and let them prepare the necessary magics. However, Terra objected. The arguments grew into a physical fight and then a mortal one. Thea would overpower Thea at first, calling for her surrender and submission. In her rage, Terra would kill Thea. For the first time, Royal killed Royal. To cover her tracks, Terra blamed Thea's death on human assassins, frightened by the idea of humanity having invaded Sanctuary. Ikari and Terra opted to leave immediately, with anyone still remaining out of the temple. Survival was now paramount. They raised no warning, no call for evacuation. Rounding up their nobles, Terra and Ikari used Sanctuary to drain every last drop of power from the wellspring into a mobile core for the temple. They teleported the entire Sanctuary temple from the foundation, splitting away the royal court to a floating invisible dimension in the sky they called Heaven. There they would be safe. The rest of Kyland was defenseless, and the human armies found the gates wide open, the wellspring of Kyland depleted. It was like someone turned off all the magic in the city and replaced it with a cold, empty, dark blandness, sulfur, decay, mud, and grime. When the fire and smoke came shortly after, it was just insult to injury. Left abandoned, the remaining peasant fairies were massacred by human Valar. The same Valar who once enjoyed lessons from these Fae now killed them because of their loyalty to the charges. May time forgive them. Laura, the seer, had seen this and devised a plan with Maya to save the rest of the class of the Valar. Resumed their attack on the last of the city, and it began to burn. Maya and Laura combined their energy with the peasants and opened a portal over the ruins of the wellspring to escape, fleeing into a new dimension called Twilight. But there was a price to pay for opening this gate, and that price was one had to stay behind to close the gate, preserving the hope of one day summoning the fairies back to the world again. One of the remaining fairies, Liesa, possessing the biggest heart of them all, chose to stay and close the gate to Twilight. All the magic absorbed into her moments before the scarred temple crashed down around her. The shockwave of energy from the portal closing behind them with such force that the fires all over were put out and the armies were knocked down, washing away the magic of the Fae from the land. This event marked the exodus of magic. Unseen by the humans, Liesa emerged from the rubble, tired, injured, but alive. She walked out of Kyland and vanished into obscurity to hide from the humans, alone in the last of the living Fae. With the Sanctuary Temple gone, the magic of Kyland wilted. Earthquakes rumbled, the gardens grew dry and brown. Humans declared victory and celebrated by burning and looting the once great city. The Valar watched as everything they believed in burned to the ground. Out of the night, the Darklings still howled. Scattered attacks gave voice to legends. The legends gave way to warnings. Avoid the forests and two still lakes, or risk an agonizing death. The era of magic without fear was over. And that's it. That's the third chapter of this piece.
Whew. Woo! That is epic for certain. So thank you so much for reading. And we do have some questions from the audience. Let me just scroll back and find these real quick. We'll start. Where was the first one that I saw? Here we go. What behind-the-scenes tidbit in your life would probably surprise your readers the most?
That's a lot of the, let's see how to explain it. A lot of the inspiration, I know you mentioned it before, like why it couldn't be robots or something like that, but a lot of the inspiration comes from my love of artificial intelligence and basic evolution. So I'm a big science nerd, love quantum mechanics, and basically all the BTS stuff that happens is I try to keep within realms of that. So big fan of Transformers, big fan of science fiction, and it's definitely more of a sci-fi thing than anything else. Yeah, I think just the fact that a lot of the characters and come from the spirit of not just my imagination, but the performances of the models. I think that has to be known. Like a lot of the characters that if you see this book come from the actual spirits and energies of the people who perform them themselves.
There was a question back here earlier before you started reading. I don't know if it's a thing that you want to reveal or keep private, but somebody did ask, is Liz Katz one of the models that you worked with? Apparently familiar with your work.
Liz Katz is a model I've worked with for, my God, since 2008. I met Liz Katz, and it was a great model to work with then, and she grew into her model skin, and I've worked with her ever since on mostly the character Sarah, but she's just an incredible model to work with, and I've worked with her on her stuff, and she's worked with me on mine, and she's just an amazing, awesome person. I love her.
So, man, small world. So, okay, here we go. What other inspirations do you have for your story aside from the imagery of the photo shoots and graphic art?
I mean, like, I think specifically because the Faerie-Punk saga is in 10 different stories. So you have the first few that are like the Lord of the Rings, ancient times before time kind of imagery. Fates is like the biblical, like first there was land and then there was water and things like that, elemental stuff. And then you get into Afterlight, which is post-apocalyptic. It's just destroyed cities and broken, fiery Los Angeles, and like just it's basically an apocalypse zombie almost inspired tale. So like Afterlight very much has very different imageries. Then you get into Spitfires, which is indie urban fantasy of like fairies in strip clubs, fairies at bars, fairies in diners, taxi cab drivers, like singers, songwriters like sitting on the corner, like doing their instruments and trying to get tips, learning about like life and vices and things like that. So that's that story. And then as you get later on to the others, you have different genres for each. You have the sci-fi, cyberpunk kind of style. You have the indie, like on the road desert stories. You have, I even wrote one that was designed to be as close to a noir, cop drama as you can imagine. It was more investigative, and so imagery. So I take from all pop culture and I apply it to what I'm trying to say, because these are modern stories utilizing the fairies as a core base of understanding, and then I kind of evolve from that. So the imagery comes from all over the place. Like I have Transformers everywhere, and I'm inspired by them too. It comes from a lot of places.
I love it because it is truly representative of the notion that fairy is where there is the world and humans, there is also fairy. It's an overlap, right? It's of where we are. I really like that angle. So let's see, we have another question here. What is the most surprising thing you discovered about your Faerie-Punk world while writing your books? From Carolina Labar.
I think the surprising thing I've discovered, it's that essentially it's all about us. Like it's just as you were saying, it's all about balance. And like in the beginning, I just thought I was creating something that was almost a vanity project. But the more and more I've come to it, it's more like that the art and everything really encapsulated, like what you said, it's a balance between this force of energy, magic, and potential, regardless of what you believe. There it is, and where we are. So this balanced yin yang perspective of it all, and it's almost made me, in doing it and developing it, I feel like, and this is a selfish thing to say, but I feel like I've grown and learned about the world while developing this. And it's not something you expect when you're like writing something that you think is just fun and cute, and to a certain extent when it started, but it evolved into something that I've taken very seriously and created a philosophy of life as a result of, and I think it's not because I found it, it's because it's there in the universe to find. And I think everyone has their different perspectives of it, but as we said, fairies are adaptive, and I think it could be whatever you need it to be.
Let's see, we have here, how in depth is the planning of this world to make your vision come into existence?
It was in depth. The amount of notes I have a 300-page production Bible that I created.
Oh my gosh.
And this was like, I created this 12 years ago in order to keep all the stories. Because while we're doing photo shoots, but all the photo shoots are planned in the back of my head. Like, I know I need, the character of Nyx, who is this rebellious, dancing fairy badass who works in a strip club. And so whenever I shot models for that character, I'd make sure that I'd have this moment in mind and have this moment in mind. All these parts of the story, I knew I was shooting, and like while the stories were kind of disconnected for a long period of time, they still existed in pre-planning. Like there was still an outline for all this. So it was huge, like trying to just
300 pages of notes.
Yeah.
Seems
300
huge.
pages of notes. Yeah. 300 pages of notes and imagery, and just making it, because we also had a desire to turn this into some form of media, and we had gone to other studios and we had conversations with companies and production companies, but it just never quite fit right where I like thought that they got what I wanted to say, that they got the spiritual and political element of it beyond like, oh, it's just sexy fairies, it's like, okay, right. Like it's not that. Like it may look like that sometimes on the surface, but if you read or do your due diligence, you'll see there's a lot of things here that's, that it's about.
So as you guys know, we have a drawing at the end of the show, and we are coming up on 3 o'clock a little bit, although we did start a little late. So I don't know how willing or able you are to stay maybe a little bit past our 3 o'clock time. I'm sure everybody would love it if you did.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm here.
Okay, so I want to say now is the time, you guys, to put your name into the comments section if you want to be entered to win. Now, Joseph, please tell us what the prize is going to be.
The prize is going to be this book, the first phase of Faerie-Punk, a Time of the Fairies source book. It is the beginning of the entire universe and sets up the second book, as the second book sets up the third. So it is near and dear to me, and it's all here, ready to go to whoever wins this.
That is awesome. So yes, now is the time to put your name into the comments. I'm going to take a couple of more questions to allow people a few minutes, and plus we always have a little bit of lag between our viewers and ourselves. So let's see. We have a question here from Newton File. What other artists or authors have been your biggest role models?
A lot of it takes from television. I'll say authors, J. Michael Straczynski, Babylon 5. The work he did on that television series and is just forefront. Whether this is a compliment to him or not, it definitely inspired majority of who I am. The artist Louise Royo. From when I was 16 years old, the first time I saw a Louise Royo book, and I was like, oh, it would be awesome if I could photograph that, if I could shoot that well, because his level of oil painting realism was just sensual, but also dark and gritty and real. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to take those pictures, and I started shooting, around the same time, and just even with the 35 millimeter, that was my goal. And Photoshop made that possible as I got better at it and better at it and better at it. So those were definitely two right there that inspired so much of how I think, how I see the world, how I see art. Definitely those.
Did you, if I may, did you go to school for art or some other thing, and then art became your thing after the fact?
It's embarrassing for me to say, but I barely went to school. I barely graduated high school. I ended up and this is fate coming up. Is like I barely graduated high school because of attendance. I just never went. But in order to graduate, finally they're like, listen, just take an art credit. Just take one art credit, and we'll leave you alone, and you can graduate and do what the heck you want. So they sent me to a college level photography course. Just to do it. And I ended up buying a camera and ended up shooting and, learning that I loved taking my friends out and just doing photo shoots. Like, I think I dressed all my friends in Starfleet uniforms, and we just used the Playmate phaser toys and just did stuff like that for a while. I just, played with light, and I realized I had a knack for it and I enjoyed it. That is the extent of my education. After that class was done,
A true autodidact.
I just kept doing it. Yeah, I learned Photoshop on my own. I learned everything else all on my own. Just practice and experimentation and development that way. That was it.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. It reminds me a little of, I don't know if you know who Peter Hollins is, but he's a super fabulous, what's the word? Acapella is what I was the word author kept wanting to try to come out my mouth there. So a super fabulous acapella musician, and his story is real similar to that. Just, this did not do much of the school and then kind of fell into music and then dove all the way in, and self-taught, and then, and now he's a name, right? So but yeah, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I kind of think it speaks a little bit more to the genius behind it, right? And the ability to break out of confines, the boxes that you're often taught, right? I was just sit around those.
I was not a fan of the things that was just being taught in general public school. And I was bored. And interesting enough, that's where I was usually when I wasn't running around being like a crazy punk. I literally was hiding in the library and learning how to piece together a television studio, or learning how to study aspects of history that I thought were fascinating, or science, or things like that. So I'd get caught being there instead of going to class, and that's where I'd get in trouble.
So I'm getting some names here into the list, because now I had one question, if I can. Okay, I've had a couple of questions, but what do you envision as the end, if there is an end, or do you plan to continue doing this series?
So yeah, that is actually I've gotten that question a lot just from my friends in general, and because one of the good things about COVID is that it's allowed me to really take the time to focus on getting these books done, and I've done that, and book 3 basically marks the end of this particular saga. What I envisioned 18 years ago is about to be done with the end of book 3. That being said, I did have some ideas, and I don't have many art for it really yet, except for stuff I've just pieced together just kind of magically and not even thinking about it. But I do have some idea for what a phase 4 in the beginning of a whole new saga would be, but I'm not even going to touch it for a certain period of time. After these are done, I'm going to take some time and go kind of live life for a little bit, because this has been my life for the last 18 years. And I'm going to take some time and develop that in the back of my head. I know what I want. I know it would require way more of a budget than I put into this, because it's definitely out there. And I know where to begin it. I haven't figured out all of it yet, but new characters, some old characters, and it could continue if I wanted it, and if the world wanted me to, and if the inspiration is there and the desire is there, I can. So, but these 3 books represent a very cohesive beginning, middle, end, done. if I wanted
And
to just say, all right, I'm good, moving on.
Okay, so I've got everybody's names. I'm gonna pull up the screen here for the book, the drawing. I'm gonna give you guys one last chance to put your name. I see all of you being funny out there, by the way, in the comments, typing your name literally. I actually say there's rhyme to that reason that I want you to type your name, because depending on where you're watching from, if you're on Facebook and you haven't given StreamYard the permissions to see your Facebook name, you all look like a Facebook user to me. You don't actually have a name identifying you, and I can't put like 20 Facebook users into the drawing wheel. So I think I see most of you though, but one last chance to get, while I pull up the wheel here, to get your name into the comments. And I'm gonna get the wheel of win, as it has come to be known, and pull all of our people. Also, if you are on our Patreon, you are automatically entered into every drawing that we do, which is, it comes to about 8 a month or so. So that is, if you add your names into the comments, you get a second entry. So here's everybody that we've got so far. And let me see. Ah, yes. Okay, one more. Okay. Okay. With that said, we are going to do the drawing for the book. Here we go. And spin. I love doing this part.
Oh, it's so cool. It's a fun little
All
project.
right. Whew. And then that loud
Sherilyn
thing happens.
Barnes.
Sherilyn Barnes is in fact the winner. Congratulations, Sherilyn Barnes. We will get into contact with you after the show to make sure we have your name and address and all of the things to get the book to you. So I guess that with that said, we are here at the end of the show. And is there anything that you would like to say to everybody before we log off here? I know that you've got your website, and all of your information is in the low bar everywhere on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and whatnot. So if people want to follow up after the show to watch your, buy anything, look at your stuff, subscribe to your Instagrams and whatnot, follow you on Facebook, they can do that just by at any time. The videos will not come down. That will continue to be there. So
awesome. Yeah, I mean, just thank you for watching. Thank you for reading along. I know I'm not the greatest reader, but there we are, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's just a taste of what even phase 1 is about, and then just phase 2 just takes it off the rails.
Nice. Ooh, well. What? Oh, right here. There you go.
Oh, nice, perfect. That's what I was about to say. The website is full of not just the books, but it has my art books, which separate everything down to the years I created the art, as well as many print galleries that also are separated in the years they were created. So you can see the progression of the entire universe kind of like happen. And if you read the books, then you'll be able to look at all the art, even if the art is not included in the book, and be able to see like, oh, I see it's this character or this situation or that. Like it's all connected.
And also the little thing that I always like to add at the end of the show, you guys, if you do pick up a book, please leave a review of that, because the reviews are incredibly helpful. So that is what I always like to throw in there. I know that people sometimes that just slips their mind after they get the thing, but don't let it. I think that
they like.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thing.
Yes.
No, I just say, and I hope they like the thing.
I don't think they could possibly not. But so with that said, yes, we are on Friday, and so that means I will see you guys all back here again on Sunday for Handmade Home Shopping. It's from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, and that is where we do show and tell with a series of vendors for you guys to shop with from home. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Joseph. This afternoon, and please excuse my little bit of tardiness there. Thank you for being accommodating.
No problem. Thank you very much, Lolly, and I thank you very much for having me on the show. Thank you for everyone for joining.
Absolutely. Hey, are you a cat person?
Yeah, I got 3 hanging around right now. There was one that I was literally petting right before the show. That was like right here off camera, just being like needing attention, like he does all the time. Now they're all sleeping in a sunbeam, and I don't know where the third one is. Oh, right there. So yeah, I'm literally surrounded in a triptych of felines.
All right. Well, have a good afternoon, and I will see you guys all later. Bye-bye, everybody. Hit the like and subscribe, and we'll see you on Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye.